Discovery Season 5, Episode 3. Details, details, details. And there's even a story in there that I like. 4 of them. Hey, it is Dr. Trek, Larry Nemecek, coming at you here from the heart of Trekland and letting the dust settle just a bit on all the recent Trek headlines and news. So instead of a quick take or a hot take, you get a second opinion from Dr. Trek. Hey, I have been writing, editing, witnessing, archiving, interviewing, hosting, dot connecting, and yes, fanning Star Trek for, a while now. And I just want to say, welcome to 3191. Did you get that? 3191? Yes. Because apparently Jinaal is a red directive code word for, can we balance an A story and a B story and a C story and a D story all in 1 hour? Look, I saw some jabber about that, but I don't have a problem with it. I actually thought, obviously, the 4 stories that we are presented with here, 4 streams, some are larger, some are smaller, some are more important, some aren't as important to the overall arc of the season, among other things, and some of them may not even be as delivered as effectively as some of the others, but it's okay. It's okay. I mean, I even thought that the progressions and the marks and what had to be accomplished for the season arc happens, but it doesn't overwhelm the story. And yeah, there is a little bit of a standaloneness to all of these episodes so far. The tone, if nothing else, much less the events and the character moments. So hey, kudos to our writers this episode. That's a partnership. That's Kyle Jarrow, who is co-executive producer, writer-producer. This is his 2nd season on Disco, and it's actually his 3rd writing credit. And at the same time, Lauren Wilkerson, a novelist who is, well, in her 1st year, executive story editor on the show. And this is her 1st credit for Disco. And then in the director's chair, we have 3rd-timer Andy Armaganian. Now, Discovery still uses standalone directors. They're not doing the paired episode blocks as some of the other modern Treks are doing. She came from a career as an editor. She had 44 Smallvilles and 21 Supergirls, among her other credits. And those are the series where she transitioned into directing. She had, 3 on Supergirl. She had 2 on Arrow. And now here, last season, she had Rubicon, the 9th show of the 4th season for Discovery. And she also, on Strange New Worlds, had Lift Us Up Where Suffering Cannot Reach over on season 1. And that was a tough one to shine, as I think we remember. So yes, kudos to the team for bringing this episode home and getting it all in balance. Okay, little things, big things. Now, first off, you remember the memorial card of episode 1 this year. Red directive for JP with love. Well, that was JP Lockerer, the camera operator. And did you notice the opening flyby? Yes, as they are wont to do these days, big ship in the foreground, named in memory of JP. Very much beloved crew member who had been with the show since the 2nd season. I thought maybe the registry number was going to be his birth date. It ends in 62 and that's his year. But apparently his birth date, it's 325 on the ship and in the NCC number. But no, his birthday is August 30th. That would be 8th. So nice idea, but still a nice touch. And boy, talk about that Trill moon. Now, if you can make out the Trill graphics, the planetary database there, yes, it has 1 satellite. And boy, is it ever. But so much Trill info here. This is a big Trill episode, just as we did when the Discovery first arrived in this century, right? Now we know, previously we had known that the symbionts, thank you DS9, had lived to at least 550 years. But now we know they can be as old as 800. Not everybody, that's not the median age, but there are some known to be 800 and more. And we've learned that Trill pattern spots, just like human fingerprints, or dorsal ridges in saurians, are unique identifiers. But wait, it didn't stop there. thanks to that wonderful Rainer montage with the crew, right? We now know, thanks to Linus, that saurians are asexual. They lay their eggs, I guess, in clutchings. That's adorable. And he's had 3. And they traditionally, the parents will never see their offspring, that they're raised by the community. I guess that's really great for not dragging down the parents with kids for Starfleet duty. Again, what did they put in the water cooler at this place? Suddenly, we're just oozing with cool details like this. I mean, we're into a greatest hits of verbal Easter eggs on Discovery. Look, Vulcan meditation gets a callback, right? And Michael does her Vulcan V's as she's doing it. Fabinet plants, which it's fine. It doesn't have to match what we saw in V'ger, because that was one of Tuvok's orchid crossbreeds. This one has bigger, right? We get a mention of binars, Decalan boreworms eating a binar synaptic processor. We get the carbonite explosive, which is a co-ingredient in the bomb that blew up Keiko's schoolroom back on DS9. And I guess Vulcan ritual mumbo-jumbo begat Klingon ritual mumbo-jumbo. And now we have Trill ritual mumbo-jumbo. I mean, it's amazing because now we've had as many Jantaras seen on Discovery as we did back on DS9, 2 apiece. And let's thank linguist, yes, Nick Farmer, who does all the Trill. Also did the Barzan for the non-episodes. And did you notice this? It's not enough that 32nd century phasers can, be magic mattered out of nothing. I know, programmable matter. But they come with their own dermal regenerator setting. So you can, shoot and then fix your target right there in the field. Or heal thyself if you need to. And apparently, portable transporter control on a Tricom now is 2 taps. Because they did it over and over, even when it didn't work. Most of all, what we learn here is that now Kellic the Romulan and Jinaal Bix and the other 4 scientists, and will we ever get their names down the line? We'll see, were actually a secret Federation president, eyes only, executive secret team working during the Dominion War. So, we get this 800 years era bandied around a lot. That would have been 2391 specifically. But we know the Dominion War was actually 2374, 2375, aka season 6 and 7 of DS9. So, fudging by 15 or so years. That's fine. But at least we know the Federation, at least the President's office, secretly at the top level, they did jump on Galen's information that Picard helped uncover, right? At least all those secrets, all that that amazing history, they didn't just let it die there. These guys let it die there 4 or 5 years later. And yet I have some questions. Yes, for instance, so was Tarina's aide Devin a Romulan? I mean, it didn't matter. He just had a more Romulan face, looked like. And of course, the Romulans and Vulcans are all together on Navarre now. I don't know. Maybe he was a Southerner? That's not exactly an old school Vulcan name with a D. And speaking of which, Saru's resource committee that he's ambassadoring on, he got to vote along with all the actual planet reps? What was up with that? I mean, and I guess the fancy 3D hollows, that's only say for emergency galactic spanning wide catastrophes, like with the DMA. Because they had nothing. They had simple show of hands. Now, I just want to shout out those 2 committee members who voted no, even though they knew they were going to lose. I guess that's Burn-era fortitude. And most of all, I want to know, who are these guys? What's their species? And is that like an updated version of the Sele? The Seleans? And per that background audio, is this humanoidish guy really Ambassador Mike?
Of course.
Oh, Ambassador Mike.
Check the tape. And so now that we know that the lounge area with open fire, which is very popular, I hear, in the 32nd century, now that we know that's called Red's.
Welcome to Red's. I'll be right back.
Is that Ferengi barkeeper? Is he red? Because the Sloga-Cola certainly is green. As it should be. Finally, is beam zapping. Or, you know, site-to-site transport or double tap on your Tricom badge now. Is that versus walking and taking turbolifts? Is that a personal choice now? I see people zapping back and forth all the time aboard ship. And yet, Burnham, who is giving everybody 10 minutes before they beam down to Trill and has 10 minutes to go meet Raynor, she just walks from the Spore Lab of Engineering to her ready room when she could have zap beamed. Is this one of those old cases where the turbolift ride took just as much time as your conversation did? Oh, my favorite line this week?
Wow, this guy really works out.
Okay, Jinaal talking about Wilson's, Culber's, well-honed bod, okay, in that original Twill 24th century slang, apparently. Well, it's obvious, but it's still funny. But really, my favorite line was Burnham saying to the doc,
"Do you remember every detail anyone's ever told you?"
It's part of my job.
Because I immediately thought, wow, yes. Apparently they have someone in the writer's room now who can do the same thing. Hey, I kid. Details. It's all about the details. Okay, not a line, but a look. My favorite look here, Burnham's side eye that she slings at Book when he answers Jinaal and says that he's an unofficial professional associate.
You're not Starfleet?
Unaffiliated professional associate.
Ah, got it. You solved the poem and the
Okay, that's got to be one of my favorite Burnham moments ever. I mean, seriously. Of course, it helped that it got mined 2 or 3 more times by Jinaal to throw it back at them. But oh boy, for this one, the characters and the cast, for one thing, the Osnulis got a name! Lieutenant Arov, yeah. And it's still Ava Blackwell under the big head. And the list goes on. We get secondhand confirmation that Nielsen is indeed now off-ship over on the new Voyager, as Sarah Middich apparently is pursuing her film projects. Yes, look her up. And she gave her pet Tribble to Christopher. I mean, was that the one we saw climbing the archway back in Red Directive? Can you tell by sight if a Tribble's been neutered? I mean, judging by the way everybody just ignored the thing, I guess everybody but Raynor already knew. Now, the entire Raynor stream here, the sea story, is funny, but it is also great for the series as a whole. I mean, why couldn't we have had this 3 seasons ago or 5? So what did we learn from this Raynor little montage of interviews? First thing, Reese, Lieutenant Commander Reese, the tactician, he's a pornista, he's a tech head, he's a Connie fan? Really? That's hysterical. I guess that Enterprise club lasts about as long as this progenitor puzzle. And it was so cool to see Dr. Pollard is still with us. Even if it was only for 1 line. I mean, it was a gory line, cool, but 1 line? I mean, not even part of the montage to close the show? I gotta think that something along the way with her got cut for time. I know, even in streaming world. And there's Jet Reno. Now, it's touching that she's checking in about Gray and Adira, yes, and rehashing that great line from her interrogation when they first landed in the 31st century. I want chips. By the way, don't forget, she is a full commander too, just like Raynor. And thus, the standoff. Now, we've met them before, but this montage of Raynor's gives us, well, along with Naya again from Science Station on the bridge, and Gallo at the helm, a drag racer? I wonder if it's retro style. Also, whom Tilly used the pronoun they. We are introduced also to the Bajoran Officer Asha. Christina Dixon is the actress. and apparently turns out to be a badass tango player. Deep tango cuts there with Complete Monopoly and Master Buffer nicknames, by the way. Meanwhile, where were Owo and Detmer? Not on camera. I mean, maybe Oyo Elijah and Emily Coots, they were on vacation or had a conflicting job, or with all of these other bridge officers, young actors, new characters, they left them off to save a little cash on the budget. One thing I know, Asha and Gallo, boy, they've got that whole mutual shared quizzical look of concern thing down pat. Just as good as Owo and Detmer, or Wesley and Data, or even Sulu and Chekhov. Speaking of pairs, I have to say that Ian Alexander has been away so long from the series that we knew this was going to be a split, right? A split in the cards for Gray and Adira. But at least they got to have a scene and a story for it. I mean, it was expected, but at least seen. I just feel their arc hasn't been as much for fans on the queer spectrum as it has been for just young adult emos in particular. In general. I mean, seeing Gray on Trill, and by the way, it was good to see Guardian Z, or Guardian Roman numeral 11. It was good to see him and all the red cloaks, but Andreas Apergis, the actor, was just wasted. They didn't do anything with the character this time, really. Still, is this really Gray's last hurrah on screen? Well, we'll have to see if there's any more circling back left in the season. And then we get down to Rayner, who's clearly been demoted to commander. But boy, Callum Keith Rennie, he really gets some time here to marinate this character. And look, I was betting, hoping, praying that they wouldn't let him marinate into too much softness. And he's there. The Tilly Rayner, who saw that coming? Who had that on their Distical Bingo card? But I really feel like they both state their piece, and they both stand toe-to-toe, and neither one backs down. But yes, there is a mutual respect, even through the lines about mutual respect. And the big winner here is, good for Tilly, for everybody who remembers where in the world she started off at the beginning of the series. Ironically, Rayner is espousing basically what echoes a lot of fans' criticism of Discovery, right, for being too emo, while here's Tilly standing up for the exact opposite. But the other big winner is Mary Wiseman, who gets to put Tilly back through her very numerous and varied tones of comic chops here. And it is really funny. What's fascinating to me is, given the nature of this episode, David Ayala and Sonequa, they just seem to underplay the whole thing. And then they let Wilson or Rayner or whoever, the rest of the cast, in all of their scenes, they just let them have it. And it's fine. They're the more subtle and the better for it. It's refreshing for Discovery to do that. Now look, somewhere along the way, Sonequa has become the woman of 1,000 comedic take faces. And it's refreshing. And it fits. And it's sure not the you-know-what face water of seasons past. Does the world know this yet? But most of all, this episode belongs to Wilson Cruz. And not Dr. Culber, but yes, housing the essence of Jinaal, right? I mean, if you ever wondered what an elder Clint Eastwood would sound like as a Join Trill host, I think we got it. Now, I'm saying that in awe. I'm so impressed with what Wilson did with his voice, his whole attitude, his body, his gait, everything. It was, well, I guess it was called acting, but it was a lot of fun to watch and very impressive for Wilson. So yay, actors love it when they get to do alternate universes and inhabit the other character and all of those little tricks, the sci-fi staples. And Wilson makes the most of it here. Good for him. All right. Between the lines, the subtext here was subtle, but I loved how even in the 32nd century, with Vulcans and Romulans reunited on Navarre, that we have this question of orthodoxy, to the point where Terena has to worry about purity or not worry, right? Is that any kind of a commentary about today, where we supposedly have a unified body, but there's factions within it? The orthodoxy here is the ones who are driving something that does not seem very logical. Not in the spirit of Iddick. And the fact that this ugliness still can raise its head and create an other, even on Navarre, almost sounds like a little commentary on our current politics. Subtle, but think about it. And you know, that it's just a mother defense. It works as well today for the Itteroks as it did way back with the Hortas, especially if the eggs are still the giveaway. Now, what's really subtle, though, is this touch upon spirituality. Where did you see that coming? I didn't. It almost harks back to what was supposed to be a theme of the Pike Year, Season 2, right? Which kind of fizzled out as soon as Aaron and Gretchen were no longer the showrunners or on staff. And yet we've got this, out of nowhere, out of the comedy, out of the 4 story threads going, this idea about Culver grappling with what he's just experienced, the philosophical, spiritual essence of it. And it does not become what the whole show is about, the whole episode, and yet it's there to be contemplated. That's an old Star Trek touch, when it's not so on the nose and heavy-handed and kind of comes out of nowhere. So again, kudos to the team. And remember, his abuela, his grandmother, and this mention of religious iconography, and actually 3 currently known, theologies. This is 20 years before Kirk. So yes, there were corners of even Earth culture, Federation culture, that weren't completely secular. And as he's describing it all, Burnham is right there with him. She's familiar too. Again, texture, not trivia. All right, how were you with Maul's surprise little appearance at the end? Were you expecting that? I mean, I was generally impressed, only because it was such a little thing. I didn't expect that they would try to get that little sliver of a moment in right there at the end for what it would do and say, but there it is. Oh, but the biggest thing of all, the biggest oh wow squee moment for this episode, you'll never guess. This is me, sorry. Zen Kathy get mentioned. Didn't see that coming. My God, they've only had one mention. They were created as a one-off, different major adversary with a war in the background for one episode of DS9, one season finale. And we've never revisited the concept of the people, much less the name. And here they pop up. Now, the Breen have gotten a couple of mentions. That would be they're equally worthy of being fleshed out a little bit. But the Zen Kathy, oh my God. It would be so awesome to finally see something visual, even if not conceptual, about the Zen Kathy. Am I going on too much about this? Yes, I am. No, I'm not. I'm still trying to make sure. Is this really Discovery? Oh, and one last thing. Did the Progenitor's tech sound to anybody else vaguely like the Genesis wave? Okay. Okay, maybe this is where I sign off on this week's Second Opinion. But that's what I think. What do you think? Come on, drop your comments below, would you? And please like and subscribe. Boost the signal. I dare you to subscribe and support some Star Trek sanity out there. Most of all, if you crave more of Dr. Trek and the Trekland point of view, I invite you to check out all of our podcasts, our live streams, and our experiences, like Portal 47, the Backstage Monthly Package, like the Trekland Treks day tours of location sites around Southern California. It's all there at LarryNemecek.com. We'll see you next week, and Trek well.